Mississippi, the Element Well Studios relocated to West Point, Mississippi. We're at the Sally Kate Winters Family Services. And joining us now, the Executive Director of Sally Kate Winters Family Services, Sheila Brand. Sheila, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, so give us a little overview of the organization's mission, and a little bit about the history of the organization.
Okay, great. Well, April is Child Abuse Prevention Month, which is kind of why we're here with SuperTalk today. We do a lot of awareness on child abuse prevention during the month of April. But Sally Kate Winters Family Services opened our doors in September of 1990 as an emergency shelter for kids in the foster care system due to child abuse, neglect, and family violence. Through the years, our agency has grown to evolve into services for runaway and homeless youth, as well as Children's Advocacy Center services for felony child abuse cases, really garnering a lot of relationships with law enforcement and child protection services and the district attorney's office and other professionals and victim advocates who work with victims of child abuse and neglect.
Was there a particular incident that sort of served as a catalyst for the formation of Sally Kate Winters?
Yes. Actually, in the late 80s, early 90s, because there was not a safe haven for kids in our local community, if child protection services or law enforcement took kids into custody in the middle of the night, they were being housed at the local jail overnight until they could place them in a facility that would be located outside of our community. There was Cassandra Smith, who was a volunteer deputy that kind of realized that was happening with children. She contacted Martha Winters, and that's kind of how the board for Sally Kate Winters Memorial Children's Home developed. And through the years, as the needs of our communities changed, then our board elected to expand our services and modify our original name.
How do children, how do you receive them? What causes them to come in contact with you and come into your care?
So if a hotline report is made to the Mississippi Child Abuse Hotline and Child Protection Services go out and deem necessary to remove the child from that environment, typically an emergency shelter is where they go. It's a short-term placement that allows Child Protection Services to work with the family, identify other relatives, or identify a foster home that can take care of those children. So a very short-term 30 to 45-day placement, and that allows us to offer stability, safety for the kids, and then identify any other needs that they might have before they go to a more permanent setting. Our Runaway and Homeless Youth program works directly with kids on a voluntary basis. So a child could come here in the middle of the night. A school counselor could identify that a child was homeless and make a referral to us. And so we have 4 shelter beds available for them as well.
Okay, so you work and I assume coordinate directly with Department of Human Services, CPS.
Yes.
In your efforts, but you're not a government entity, and in fact, you rely on private funding.
Yes.
Is that right?
That's right. We're a private nonprofit. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, and my brief exposure in working with not CPS but DHS in general is they're overwhelmed. They seem to be not have sufficient staff to deal with all the caseload that they have. I had 2 foster children a long time ago, and that just anecdotally seemed to be the case. So seems like this organization sort of fills a void and serves a very valuable role in just trying to take care of children that come from these environments.
Well, if you think about it, in 2019, there are a little over 33,000 hotline reports for suspected child abuse and neglect in the state of Mississippi. That's a lot of reports for one entity to be responsible. Only about 80% of those reports required an investigation, but that's still close to 30,000. And so they're not only working with the family and foster homes, but our focus is the child and kind of determining what that child needs for stability and providing that so that then Child Protection Services can work on the investigation or work on, helping the family get their lights turned back on or beds in the home so the children can be returned.
Yeah. How big is the geographic area that you serve?
So our primary focus is 5 counties surrounding Clay County for a lot of our programs, but we take kids from all over the state, particularly our runaway and homeless youth. The shelter beds, there's only 2 shelters in the whole state for runaway and homeless youth, and those are kids not involved in the state foster care system. And so we're Meridian North, and then the Vicksburg shelter serves, Meridian South. For our transitional living program that works with runaway and homeless youth, we're the only program that works with that population in the state. So we serve kids from all 82 counties if we receive a referral for them.
And there's some legal hurdles that have to be jumped through as well. Is that correct? When you have a child in an endangered situation in a home, I'm not sure exactly how that works, but you've got to get some authority. Is that correct?
That's
from judges?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. So we do a lot of work with youth court or chancery judges.
Yeah.
Of course, our felony child abuse cases that come through the Children's Advocacy Center, a lot of work with the criminal justice system. So we deal with all 3 court systems, depending on, the individual needs of that particular youth.
If there is such a thing, what's a typical case? What's a typical situation?
I would say about half or more of the kids that come into the shelter program are, victims of neglect. You have parents who can't provide food and the basic necessities for those kids, or they live in an environment that's really not a good environment for adults or children.
Mm-hmm.
And then we do see a lot of severe physical and sexual abuse cases that come through the Children's Advocacy Center program, but those children don't all end up in the foster care system. Sometimes they are placed with a relative, or maybe the abuser leaves the home, and so the children can stay with the non-abusive parent.
Is it typically the child that calls attention to this, the situation, or is it a friend, a relative, kind of all the above?
It's really all the above, and so part of Child Abuse Prevention Month is really focusing on the mandated reporting laws in the state of Mississippi, and we're all mandated reporters. If we identify a suspicious or we feel like a child is in harm in any way, it's our duty to make a report to the hotline. Not that we have to be sure, not that we have to investigate ourselves, but we leave that work then to Child Protection Services and law enforcement to really do the investigative work to determine if that child is indeed in danger and what needs to be done. But we're all mandated reporters. Yeah. It's our responsibility to offer safety and protect children in our communities. So whether it's the school counselor or the teacher, that was kind of a big deal when COVID was going on. You saw a huge drop in hotline reports because they were not involved in the organizations outside of the home. Yeah. And for, 12 to 18 months, they were in an abusive environment, and we saw increased severe physical abuse during that time, and that those numbers really increased as the pandemic kind of slowed and families and children were getting out and involved in things again. Those severe physical abuse cases kind of came to the surface and started coming in.
And the goal is to provide some sort of temporary shelter and stability and ultimately place them in a proper home. Is that right?
Yes. So we don't actually do the placement.
Yeah.
We just
DHS does that, right?
Right.
Yeah.
We just do the work of stabilizing the child, identifying their initial needs, getting them ready for that permanency piece, so that they can be successful when they leave us.
Yeah.
When you think about it, if a child is removed in the middle of the night and comes into our shelter program, they are with complete strangers, and how traumatic that is for them. And so us helping them work through the trauma of being removed, but also the trauma of either the abuse or neglect that resulted in removing them from the home. So a lot of issues that have to be addressed before they're ready to go into another environment and be successful in that environment.
And then your staff, are they permanent, full-time employees, volunteers, combination?
We have 27 full-time employees, 25 full-time, 2 part-time. Okay. That, our shelter program is staffed with 2 people awake 24/7, which is a huge piece of our budget, is providing that. But then we also have the professional staff of therapists, licensed social workers to kind of also work on that trauma piece. So a combination of professional and direct care staff. But volunteers are a huge piece of what we do too, and couldn't do our work without them.
Great. Sheila, thanks for coming on and giving us that overview of the organization. We got other folks associated as well coming on the program later. It's an honor to be here, and thanks for all the great work.
Thank you.
We'll take a break right here on Middays. We're in the Element Well Studios at Sally Kate Winters Family Services, West Point, Mississippi. Stay with us. At the Sally Kate Winters Family Services in West Point, Mississippi. Today it is Child Abuse Prevention Month. And joining us now, Cynthia Mathews, Shelter Case Manager at Sally Kate Winters Family Services. Cynthia, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for inviting me.
All right, so tell us exactly what you do as the Shelter Case Manager.
As part of my duty, I am responsible for intake of the clients, and I provide services for them, like if they need medical, dental, vision, any medical services, or follow-up services for medical, and as well as I work with the schools, enroll them, get them in school, work with the teachers, and also work with their social workers, for as giving reports on them, weekly reports to the social worker to help them be aware of any behaviors, and also to assist with placement them once they have completed their stay with us.
Yeah. I got to believe that you form some sort of personal attachment to the kids when you're working with them.
Most definitely, I have. There have been moments where there have been bittersweet times when they're leaving, so I have most definitely established bonds with them. It makes me feel really good when I go out into the community to a local restaurant and see a former client there.
Yeah.
So it makes me feel really proud of them and knowing that I've made an impact in that child's life.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've got to have, I'm sure, a large number of success stories that you're proud of. Any in particular you want to share?
Yes, there is one. There is, I think, the one that's dear to me. We had a little 8-year-old. He was autistic, and prior to coming to us, he was known as a runner. So before when he got here, we had to put latches on the door to make sure that we kept him safe, and was able to get him into school. And the schools had to do the same thing, put latches on their classroom door to keep him in. And he also loved trains, so being right here next to the train track, that was like, whoo, he's gonna really enjoy this. And really he did. So when the train would come by, he would run to the door to look at the train. And also, at school, we had like a reward program for him while he was with us and at school. And the reward was to go to the local train museum. And so he really looked forward to going to the train museum. And I'm not for sure if he enjoyed the train museum as much as the person working at the train museum seeing him, because we could actually spend hours there if we would let him stay at the train museum. And he also enjoyed the fire station, the fire truck, so we would take him to the fire department and let him tour that. And so that we provided him all of his services while he was with us. And we would pick him up from school early because didn't want him in with everybody being autistic, getting out at the same time. And I was like one of his favorite ones. So if I was not able to go and get him, he'll be like, well, where's Miss Cynthia? So I tried to make it my business every day to go and pick him up from school unless I was not able to.
Cynthia, when they come to you, do you find often that maybe it's the first time they've had a healthy, secure, safe, stable environment?
Most definitely it is, because when I'm taking them to their appointments, they've never been to the dentist. They've never had any type of medical treatment. We've had one who had 20 plus cavities, and he was a teenager. So yeah, this is I'm glad that we're here to provide that safety and that nurturing environment for them.
Yeah. What about the private sector sponsors? I see the list here, so many great companies, individuals that are involved. How important is that?
Very important. We could not do it without them. They assist us in all areas. They assist us with activities, helping celebrate their birthdays, because we want this to be like a home-like environment for them. So we celebrate birthdays. And, when they lose a loved one, we mourn with them. We do bloom release with them. So, yes, we are very grateful for our sponsors.
So, do you see situations where before a child comes to you, they're struggling in school, and then they come in and you get them the correct environment, you get them safe, and they're not as consumed with that problem, and they start to perform better in school?
Most definitely, yes. We have one that was homeschooled prior to coming, and since the child, once the child was with us, the child has performed well now, and the child is prepared to move on to the next grade level.
That's awesome.
So yes, we have a very great tutors that come also and assist us with that.
Yeah.
So yes, I have really seen that's been a success for us.
Well, I can. It's been a pleasure talking to you, but I can certainly tell that you have a passion for this. It's a calling. It's a passion. It's a very important service.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thanks for what you do. Cynthia Mathews, Shelter Case Manager. We're at Sally Kate Winters Family Services. It's Child Abuse Prevention Month, the Element Wealth Studios in West Point, Mississippi, live from the Sally Kate Winters Family Services in West Point, Mississippi. Gorgeous spring day up here. And joining us now on the set, Natalie White, Sally Kate Winters Family Services, Runaway and Homeless Youth Programs. Natalie, thanks for joining us, and thanks for having us.
Thank you so much for being here today.
All right, tell us exactly what your role is here at Sally Kate Winters Family Services.
Well, my role is actually I am the clinical coordinator for the Runaway and Homeless Youth programs that we have here. And there are two programs that we actually have. The Transitional Living Program, which services youth ages 16 to 21, and also our Runaway and Homeless Youth Program, which serves youth ages 12 to 17.
Okay, so what exactly, how would one be categorized as runaway? What constitutes that?
Okay. What we have here is 4 criteria that we try to put youth in as far as that status. They can be at risk, runaway, couch surfing,
Yep.
or street youth, and homeless youth. Those are the 4 categories.
Okay, and they come in. Are you amongst the first to actually see the child when they come into the program?
Well, it kind of depends. It kind of depends because of we have a referral program. Well, referral for both programs.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Where sometimes youth come in the middle of the night, and sometimes they are school counselors or parents or anyone in the community may do an actual referral source. So what happens is sometimes I may talk to them. Sometimes individuals that work within those programs may talk to them to do the paperwork to be able to get those youth in either of those 2 programs.
Is this a situation, because you said something there that don't think about, come into the middle of the night. Is this a situation where you may be on call 7/24?
Yes. So we actually rotate on calls between 4 staff, myself and 3 other staff.
Yeah.
So we rotate on calls 7 days a week. Yes.
Yeah, because it's not a situation that can wait.
Right. Exactly. And one of the things is, especially with our Runaway and Homeless Youth Program, we try to make sure that the youth understands it is a 24-hour program.
Yeah.
And so when individuals do call, a lot of times we may have to do what I call, with the referral process I said earlier. We do interviewing, but sometimes we have to quickly provide those services.
Yeah.
So sometimes that situation looks a little bit different. Of course, in the ideal world, you want to be able to have a sit-down conversation to kind of see what's really going on and get the full scope. A lot of times we don't get the full scope until we provide those basic needs, and then the next probably 24, 48 hours, we're getting more of the story of what's going on with that particular youth.
So the runaway and homeless youth that would come into your care, are they typically from Mississippi? Are they running away, or they're homeless in Mississippi residents, or they've run away from homes outside the state?
Great question. It is actually in Mississippi. We have service outside of the state, but over 50% of our youth are actually from the state of Mississippi. When
you first talk to them, what's the typical, if there is such a thing, is typical reason why they're running away?
Some of the issues could be, of course, parental conflicts within the home. There is individuals that come in that may have issues with food, clothing, shelter. And so those are some of the issues that they kind of face. But we kind of hear for the teens more conflict with parents.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. And so do you get involved and try to resolve those conflicts?
Yes. Again, depending on the situation. If
sure.
it's very severe, we're trying to work with the youth first. And then also our biggest goal, especially with our Runaway Homeless Youth Program, is to reunify.
Yeah.
And that is something that we do provide on site counseling for families and to really put services in the home for them. When the child returns back to the home, because that is something that we really see a lot of, the conflict and the issues, and a lot of times, and I really love that program because we see so much success with that program where the youth are able to go back into the home, and before they go back, we actually are putting services in place, so therefore when the child returns back, things are already
I got you. Are you required to make contact with the parents or the guardians?
Yes.
In this case?
Yes, we are required when they are minors.
Okay.
We are required. So anyone that's younger than the age of 18, we are required to contact the families.
Yeah. Do you have to let the children know that as well?
Yes, we do. We do. For instance, when we do let the children know that, and sometimes they're afraid or don't quite understand, but we have a way of communicating with the youth to let them know this is a safe place. This is why we have to contact your parents, but you are more than we're more than able to stay here and provide those services for your parents as well.
Gotcha.
So we get a lot more buy-in for the youth and the families.
I understand. Natalie, thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate that. Natalie White with Sally Kate Winters Family Services, Runaway and Homeless Youth Programs. We'll take a break right here. It is top of the hour, so that means SuperTalk News and Fox News. Mississippi, it's Sally Kate Winters Family Services, West Point, Mississippi. We are, of course, in the relocated temporarily Element Wealth Studios. Go to myelementwealth.com or call 601-957-6006 to let Element Wealth help you find your balance between income, growth, and guarantees. We've had some questions from the audience about how to get more information about Sally Kate Winters. It is Child Abuse Prevention Month, but how to get more information, and in particular how to donate, text SuperTalk 22 to 41444. SuperTalk 22 to 41444. And joining us now on the Element Wealth set, we've got Laura Yelverton, volunteer and staff member, Sally Kate Winters Family Services. Laura, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Volunteer, you're a volunteer and a staff member, is that right?
I have been both.
Okay, you've been both. All right, got you.
I have.
And how long have you been doing that?
Well, I originally started as a staff member here in 2007, so I worked full-time here on multiple projects and programs, and over the years I've went part-time. I went home and stayed home with my kids, and during those 4 or 5 years I volunteered here as part of my connection with the agency and the programs and the services that are near and dear to my heart. And just recently, last couple of years, I've come back again as a staff member.
Okay. Hey, anything in particular that kind of compelled you to get into this and be associated with the organization? This is difficult situations a lot of
Right. The content is heavy, right? But there's a lot of passion for not just on my behalf of myself, but all the staff members here to really enrich the lives of these kids. So, if we just improve one element for one child, during their time here, it's worth it. But obviously, I feel like there's a good reason to be here, and we're doing more than just one kid and one element of their life. We're really enhancing their overall childhood experience, and I think that's really important.
Yeah. So I got to believe that you probably formed some special relationships with the children as well. Get attached to them?
Yes. Over the years, I've worked in assisted with the shelter program. I have helped with the Runaway Homeless Youth and Transitional Living program, establishing those programs from the start. And so in that, I've actually met with a number of kids. I actually have a mental health degree, so I've done some of that programming too, assisted with some of those things, and so currently I'm in the CAC aspect. So we look at a lot of those reports and those cases, and ensure that the services are being served. And really that the kids come first. And so in all of our programs, that's our mentality. And so when you see that and how that benefits the kids, it really makes coming to work worth it every day.
Does it seem like, you being the expert in this, that it's so critically important to have the opportunity to work with these kids at that sort of critical juncture, that it can maybe be the difference between them falling into trouble
Right.
or pursuing a productive adult life?
Right. So, kids that we come in contact with, really, if they're in our program or our agency at all, are in some type of crisis.
Yeah.
So, realizing that and knowing that how we handle them and the programs that we serve in our agency and how we really address that really does make an impact. We've had, over the years that I've worked here, had people that have been in the shelter, kids, families, sibling sets that have been in the shelter have come back and, asking for staff members by name.
Wow.
We've had some Facebook posts even for people following up years later. And, we don't get to hear about those success stories often, but so when we do, it's really, really it just really touches your heart as a service member here at the agency in the different programs.
It's got to be gratifying.
Oh yeah, 100%. And that's just the ones we know of, right?
Yeah.
So we know that the experience and the trauma focused services that we're providing are really are providing a positive impact for them. And maybe they don't know it now, maybe they don't know it next year, but they will benefit from it in the future for sure.
Making a difference, and I got to believe that when you come across these success stories, when you hear those and become apprised of those, that serves as motivation.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Like I said, the content's hard. The days here aren't always full of giggles and laughs, right? Sure. Sometimes they're hard. The content's hard. The kids are in a hard place. But it's important for us as staff members to continue to be positive and show that positive effect on them and how they can be successful.
Got to have a bit of a servant's heart, no doubt about that.
100%.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate you guys having us up here today. It's been our pleasure being associated with Child Abuse Prevention Month at Sally Kate Winters Family Services. Laura, thanks for coming on.